What's going on, everybody? This is Nick from House of Paint 203 bringing you the Frost Giant from Nolzur's Marvelous Miniatures. Very excited to get started. But before we do, just a friendly reminder to smite like and slam subscribe so that you can stay up to date on all the latest content that I'm putting out there in my quest to paint the manual. Something else to keep in mind with this miniature is the arm does detach, and it actually comes out of the blister pack detached. I've gone ahead and primed him in black, which I'm okay with. There are some kind of lighter elements to him, but I decided to go with black anyway. So this may have to go 2 parts. I'm not sure. We'll just have to see where we are in the grand scheme of things. But without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to start off with a base coat on the flesh with a mix of heavy blue-gray, frost blue, and black. And what I want to do is really develop a kind of pale grayish blue skin tone. Now he is wearing a lot of leather, so on the upper portion covering his shoulder pads, or covering his shoulders I should say, I'm going to be going over this with a base coat of Rhinox hide. And on the next layer of leathers, to add some contrast, I'll be going over this with a base coat of Mournfang brown. And for this last layer of leathers, I'm going to be going over this with a layer of Khaki, Mournfang brown, and Rhinox hide. Getting into his beard with a nice mix of Stonewall gray, dark Prussian blue, and some black. Now for the skull that he's wearing over his head and kind of draping over his collarbone, I'm going to be going over this with a base coat of heavy brown. Now for the chainmail shirt that he's wearing, I'm going to be taking advantage of the black primer and dry brushing with a mix of heavy blue-gray and black. Basing this thick belt that he's rocking with a mix of heavy red Ruddy skin and Rhinox hide. I'm going to start to layer this heavy blue-gray by outlining the fringes of his male shirt and then following that up with a dry brush over the more curved areas of the vest. And now I'm going to try to reestablish some of those dimples and divots with a layer of Nuln oil. basing these kind of rib bracers, I guess, with a layer of khaki, heavy red, and ruddy skin. Trying to reclaim some of this depth inside these bracers here with a wash of Carrouburg Crimson. Since we got the washes out, I'm going to use some Sepia wash to darken up the lighter of the 3 layers of leathers. For the fur down on his boots, I'm going to be going over this with a base coat of Odiug brown with a hint of heavy brown mixed in. And same thing up over his shoulders. Base coat of Rhinox hide on the pants. Base coat of Mournfang brown on the knee pads. As well as up here dangling over his mail. Got this Rhinox hide on his wrist bracer. And Mournfang brown on the straps. Getting started with some highlights on his leathers. We're going with pure khaki over the edges and over the raised areas of the lower leather portions up here. Now adding some leather brown to the Mournfang brown and applying highlights to the second layer of leathers. And topping off the knee pads with a dry brush of that mix. With the mid-tone of Rhinox hide and desert yellow, I'll be applying a highlight to the upper layer of leathers. Also going to try to hit the pants down here as well. And with pure Stonewall Gray, I'll be applying a mid-tone highlight to certain areas of the beard. Adding some bone white to the heavy brown, I'll be applying a highlight to the bone helmet that he's wearing. Now with some pure leather brown, I'm going to be lightening up some of these shoulder pads. Now I'll be doing the same thing on these with a mix of khaki and Odiug brown. And up here with roughly a 70-30 mix of desert yellow to Rhinox hide. And with a layer of frost blue and heavy violet, I'll be applying some shading to the lower areas of his facial features. Also the lower curves of his arms and his biceps. Between his fingers. And now try to reestablish those highlights with some heavy blue-gray and frost blue. Skimming over the frills of his shoulder pad with some pure desert yellow. And adding some dead white to the previous mixture, I'll be applying some max highlights to certain areas of his flesh. Now with some pure bone white, I'm going to be skimming over the fur of his boots. Doing the same thing up on his shoulders. Adding some pure bone white to the skull, I'll be applying a near to max highlight up here. Applying this bone white to his beard as well. Going to get started on his bracers here with a base coat of heavy blue gray and black. Now with some pure heavy blue gray, I'll be touching up some of the more prominent spots on the metal. Adding white to the heavy blue-gray, I'll be applying a max highlight in the center of those heavy blue-gray spots that I just painted. With some pure Ruddy skin, I'm going to be going over the large belt that he is wearing. Going to be repeating the same process on the larger axe. Since I think this is supposed to be a magic weapon, I'm going to go over this with a dry brush of ghostly blue to kind of give it that shiny looking effect. Go over this with a nice dry brush of bone white. pretty much all over. Get a little base of Mournfang brown here on this axe handle. I got that Mournfang out. I'll also touch up the straps on his wrist bracers. Gonna get a little highlight of pure desert yellow over that Mournfang. And down here on the moccasins. Adding some leather brown to the Mournfang brown. I'll be applying a mid-tone highlight to the moccasins. And running over the straps of his moccasins with a highlight of fair skin. Gonna base coat the base under his feet with a layer of desert yellow and white. And now that that's dry, I'm going to give it a layer of sepia wash. And for the cherry on top, I'm going to be applying a little bit of snow effect all across the base, on the tips of his shoes, on some of the fur, and a little bit on his beard. All right, so there we have it, the Frost Giant. Probably my favorite of all the giants in the Monster Manual. And this was a very fun one to paint. I hope you enjoyed. Information on how to follow me on all my social media platforms is immediately following the video, as is information on how to follow Dominic Marriott of Credit UK and Mike Donnarummo of MVD Studios. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.